I believe we are live and streaming, and so welcome everyone to the last of our community engagement planning meetings for Creating the Future. And if you are watching via the blog post and would like to join in the conversation, the hashtag at Twitter is the only place we will look. So if you add comments into the blog, we will look at them later. But if you'd like to be part of the conversation, please tweet to the hashtag Creating the Future, and we will take a look at those and incorporate those into our conversation today. We are, because this is the last of our community engagement planning conversations, and we need to get an action plan done today. We are going to do something we rarely do. We are going to skip awesomes. We are going to skip really connecting with each other. Fortunately, we have done that at every meeting over this past summer. So hopefully you all have a sense of each other, and we'll be diving in. But what we will do today is we will say hello. If you will just very, very briefly say hello, where you're located, whose traditional lands you are sitting on, and just very, very quickly how you're feeling. So I will start. I'm Hilda Gottlieb. I am in Tucson, Arizona, the traditional lands of the Tohono and the Pascua Yaqui, and before that, the Hohokam. And I am feeling discombobulated. We got off a plane at midnight last night, and I have no idea what time it is, what day it is, and where I am. So there we go. Elaine, tell us who you are, where you are, and how you're feeling today.
Hi, everybody. Elaine Capes, and I am in Dufferin County, which is about an hour north of Toronto in Ontario, and Dufferin County resides on the territorial and ancestral lands of the Teonatate, Adawandron, Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe peoples. Happy to be here and see all of you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Jackie, how about you?
Good afternoon, everyone. Jackie Bradley. I am joining from the lands of the Anishinaabe and Wyandot Nation, also known as Southeastern Michigan. And I am feeling excited for what comes out of this meeting after a summer working on this together.
Wonderful. Ron, hello.
Hi, Ron Bulmer from Halifax, Nova Scotia, traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq. Feeling satisfied that we've moved my mom out of her apartment into long-term care, and a little bit nervous about a friend of mine who has Lyme and still is not out of it after about 10 weeks. So yeah, cross my fingers for him.
Wow, caring in all parts. Yeah, thank you. Andrew, welcome.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Andrew Schulman in Los Angeles, the native lands of the Tongva people. Good to be with everyone today.
Great. And Carl.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carl Wilding. I'm based in London, just outside London in the UK. I'm good today. It's the calm before the storm here in the UK but that's for another time.
Seems that's life these days, just about everywhere. And to just give everyone a sense, if you weren't here when Carl first came on, it's 8 o'clock at night. By the time we're done, it will be 10 o'clock at night for him. And so if you see Carl sort of, it's not us. It's way past my bedtime where you are. Mark.
Hi, thanks. Mark Hobner, outside of New York City, some 100 miles or so in the Korchog and Shinnecock lands. And I'm reassessing my career goals, having read Jackie's notes. Thank you.
I don't even want to go into that. Madeline, hello.
Hi, everybody. My name is Madeline DeMarco. I use the pronoun she and her. I'm joining you all from the lands of the Anishinaabe and Wyandot people, colonially known as Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I just finished listening to some Celine Dion, which I do when I really need to like pump up. So I'm just bopping along over here still.
Awesome. 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 Angie, how about you?
Hi, everyone. I'm Angie Eikenberry and in Omaha, Nebraska, the Omaha and Sioux Nations. And I'm happy to see everybody and looking forward to the conversation.
Wonderful, thank you. Just got to rearrange here. Justin.
Hi, everyone. I'm Justin Pollock. I am on land that was lived upon by the Nacotchtank tribe that is now Washington, D.C. I am feeling parent trap because school just started and I'm trying to have a job and I'm trying to make food and, all that.
The stuff. Oh, man. Dimitri. Oh, yes, absolutely.
Hi, I'm Dimitri Petropoulos, also from Tucson, Arizona, traditional home of the Tohono O'odham and the Pascua Yaqui and the Hohokam and probably many other peoples that we have no idea who they were, but they definitely called this home for a long time.
Wonderful, wonderful. And if you could change your name, Dimitri, from Creating the Future to.
I love that name.
I know. Boo.
Hi, everyone. I'm in Seattle, which is on Duwamish and Coast Salish land. And I just tested positive for COVID for the first time 3 days ago. So it gives me an excuse to lie down in a hammock right now for this meeting.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah. How are you feeling? Are you okay?
It's good. The whole family got it, and it's all been pretty mild.
Good. Hope it stays that way. I think I got everybody. I saw Josephine was trying to get in, and we'll have people introduce themselves as they join us. And I appreciate y'all agreeing to forego the awesomeness today, because I really do want to know what's going on in all your lives. So I'll do a quick review here, and we can dive in. We have used catalytic thinking to create this community engagement plan. And I will copy into the chat for anybody that needs it, the location, everyone. If you need to have the notes that were sent around, they are posted in red in the middle, about 2 paragraphs down in that link there. What we did, as most facilitators wind up doing once lots of ideas and thoughts are all on the board and you're about 2 hours in and everybody's going, we pulled together the main themes that came out of all of the notes from all of our sessions. And I want to publicly thank Jackie Bradley for pulling those notes together. They are just, yeah. And so it made it much easier to pull out the main themes that came out of that conversation. You'll see those in the link if you haven't already seen it. And from those themes, what we basically did was come up with possible actions to address all of them. One of the things, because this has also been a learning opportunity for a learning cohort, many of you are part of that learning cohort, applying catalytic thinking to community engagement. One of the things that you'll notice in that document and notice in the process that we've been through, and I try and be as explicit, when we teach, we always try and be as explicit as possible about why we're doing what we're doing. Most community engagement planning that you may have been through has a tendency to look like, we need to engage our community. What do you want to do? And we brainstorm a whole lot of ideas. And there's not really a whole hell of a lot in between those two questions. We need to be doing engagement, and everybody comes up with, we should do a newsletter, we should have a party, we should have, and that's frequently how these kinds of plans wind up going. What we did was instead first focused on what engagement will make possible for the people we're engaging. I mean, we identified pretty quickly what it makes possible for Creating the Future, but what will it make possible for the people that we're talking with? And from there, what do they need to feel in order to feel engaged? What do they need to know? What do they need to experience? our actions will then aim at creating those conditions. So they feel connected to each other. They feel like they're learning, and they feel like they have the power to actually create change, which is dramatically different. You know, I once gave a talk where I was referencing my TED Talk, and I talked about the fact that this was a group that needed to do community engagement. They went through catalytic thinking, and through that, they realized that one of the issues that they need, one of the conditions they wanted to create, was compassion in their community. And so those of you who have watched the TED Talk recently will remember that what they did to create compassion and connection was they volunteered at other organizations where they could share their mission while they were doing the work volunteering with those other organizations. And what's so interesting is when I talk about that in groups, people will say, you know what, if they had just gone right into, well, what do you want to do for community engagement? They would have done billboards, they would have done newsletters. They probably never would have thought, wow, we could volunteer side by side with the very people we want to engage. And so for us, that's what we did. The themes that you see in that document are the conditions that we need to be creating for the people that we're going to be talking to. And so today, what we're going to be talking about is what actions will create those conditions. And importantly, who's going to do those actions? So there's a lot here. There's a lot here. We are going to be inviting the people who are already in our community to create what's next for creating the future. We've said many times, it's not up to 4 or 5 or 10 of us on a screen to decide what is next for the several thousands of people who are already in our community. We're not talking about necessarily expanding that community right now. Right now, in order to determine what's next, it's talking to the people in that community, trusting the wisdom in the room, sharing. It's not even sharing the power, it's acknowledging that we all have that power and bringing that together and activating that. And so that's what we are going to be aiming at today. We'll invite them. We will figure out who will facilitate those conversations and in what way. What are the various ways? We've talked so much about meeting people where they are. There's some people who want to be in a conversation like this. There's some people who just want to tick a box in a survey. So what will it take to get that going? Who will do the inviting? Who will do the facilitating if there's conversations, etc. So let's dive in, and first just in terms of the stuff that's in the document, the themes that you saw. Are there actions that occurred to you that aren't listed here that we can just start making sure are in the mix? And I also want to note that because I was on an airplane all day yesterday, if you sent me any notes after like 3-4 days ago, I did not see them. So I apologize for that, but one of the notes that I had jotted down, and we're all just going to jump in here. We can raise hands if that makes it easier for y'all. But one of the things that in terms of the condition of mutual accountability, what will it take for people to feel and experience this from the start? One of the things that I had noted from the conversations that several of the folks in the cohort had, Jackie and Madeline and Kim, who's not here right now. What I was thinking about in terms of what people need to feel and experience to feel that sense that it is authentic, that mutual accountability is authentic, is to see that we're serious about it. I think there's even just a big piece about the fact that we have always had folks co-deciding alongside of us in these meetings. Whenever there's been anything to decide, we have done that collaboratively, and it has been everybody together. So I think that sometimes in order to understand that the accountability will be mutual, you have to, in order to trust that, you got to see it. So that was one of the things that occurred to me.
So in the blank lines, that's one of the items.
That's yeah, one of the. But as you read through, were there any actions that we should be taking, that we need to be taking, that occurred to you, or any ideas of, oh, you know what we could do?
I'll jump in because I emailed you, Hildy, but I don't think you saw it because I was late in sending it to you. I'm sorry. And I'll post what I wrote in the text because I'm not sure I can articulate it very well, but it has to do basically, and I also missed several meetings, so I'm sorry about that. So I don't know how, anyway, well, basically the one meeting that I was at that really stuck out to me was when Farah was talking about being more aware of, you know, our own whiteness, or white folks not deflecting, and that we, you know, there was important for us to be thinking about that, and then also, yeah, just coming to term with whiteness, I think was the essence of that. And it seems to me in the notes like we could maybe do more to integrate some of these ideas around whiteness, racism, anti-racism, and so on into our thinking about all of this. I'll also post what I wrote to you, but it's not going to be that much clearer probably.
Right. No, that's great. Are there specific actions, and I'm going to keep asking this throughout our time together today, are there specific actions that you can think of as we are engaging our current community that would create that condition?
Well, I think just making sure it's part of the conversations in our awareness, I think is at least one thing that needs to happen. And then also trying to be as open to difference, or embracing living fearlessly with and within difference, as yes, I'm feminist, right? About that's as good as I can do right now.
Yeah. Addressing it probably during whatever conversations arise. I'm not sure what the actions would be in terms of invitation, but there's sort of invitation and conversation, and I think that's a really important thing to be addressing, certainly in the conversations. Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead, Justin.
Well, I mean, one thing that sort of pops up for me as we think about next steps is, you know, I think we've done a real great job around thinking about what community engagement looks like and what makes it effective. I do think we're now sort of at the point of back to what ends, you know, that really this is built around engagement around the question of what's next for creating the future. And so we're not engaging just for engaging's sake. So I think making clear that the invitation that we want people to engage around is specifically that question of what people, and I guess this is where the engagement and connection and communing comes together, but what is it that they want a future creating the future to make possible for them? And as we then think about, I think those questions of, you know, what would that take to do and where do those resources lie? You know, then comes an on-ramp. I actually see that's the on-ramp to what Angie was raising, is as we start to think about what the shape or structure is, we have to ask those critical questions of who's affected and what perspectives are we biasing ourselves towards. But I do kind of come back to the first thing is creating that invitation around creating the future, being at an not an inflection point, but a continuity point of asking the critical question of what we want to continue to make possible moving forward. And that's where the community needs to have a voice around that.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking along those lines as I was in the shower this morning. I was thinking about part of the facilitated questions being, what does creating the future make possible for you now? Because anybody who actually steps forward to step in is going to feel in some way connected. Otherwise, they're not going to bother. And so I was thinking about asking that question as well, Justin. What else occurred to you all? And I want to take a moment and welcome Josephine and Sherry and Lori, who were not here when we all said our hellos. Josephine, do you want to take a quick second and just say where you're located, whose lands those are, and just how are you feeling today?
Hi, Josephine Eisenberg. I'm living in Sarasota, Florida, which is the home to the Calusa, Takabaga, and Timuquana people. And I'm feeling great. I'm excited for this conversation. Okay. So thank you.
Good, good. And you, Sherry?
Hi, yeah, I'm in Parrish, Florida, and close home to the Calusa, and I actually saw some of the burial ground this weekend. It was pointed out to me by some folks, and I'm feeling great and sorry that I'm late. Thank you for letting me join.
Thanks. Thank you for being here. And Lori has noted that she's in a class, so she'll be muted and off video, but she's here. So that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I don't know if that's wonderful for the class, but it's we're really, really happy that you're here. What we are doing is just sort of diving into looking at the document that went out a week or so ago and just asking what actions pop for you, what actions, whether they're listed in here or not listed in here, occur to you that we need to be doing in order to create the conditions in this document.
Hildy, can I just chat while everybody's thinking about that again?
Jump on in, Elaine, yeah.
So, Justin, I'm not sure if I'm doing justice to what I thought you were saying, but when I was going through things, I kept going back to what can creating the future make possible for people who want to engage to make a difference. That's what I kept coming back to, because all of the people who I've met in this connection are people who have a strong desire and passion to make a difference. So that's one thing about people who want to make a difference. And in the notes, and I forgot to mention this earlier, was somebody had talked about the pathways to participation, that being motivation, resources, opportunity, and a trigger. So again, connecting to sort of why people would come to the table, why people would come to creating the future. What is the trigger for them? Mm-hmm. It's kind of the same question that you were asking, but what is that trigger? You know, what will motivate them? That's where my thoughts are all going.
Great question. Great question. Yeah. I thought it was really important as I went through all of the notes, the whole "what's in it for me" question, because that's really what the trigger is. You know, why should I do this? Why should I take time and do this? Even if the time I'm taking is 5 minutes to fill out a survey.
I think dovetailing off of that, so much of what we talked about was the sort of self-definitional component of engagement, and a lot of it being about the relationship. What's someone's relationship? So I think as we're, if we really want to learn, as we're asking that question, what is it that creating the future makes possible? I think we would also want to know, and how do you describe or conceive of your relationship to creating the future? What is your relationship? Because, we talked about sometimes people feel like they're an audience. Sometimes they feel like they're a participant. So I think it would be really helpful to be able to get a sense of not only to, the point that was raised, around what are people getting, how is it affecting their lives, but actually understanding, well, what's the relationship? How are you in relationship to creating the future, whether it's the people, the content, that stuff.
Yeah. I'm really thinking about these two pieces. There is the invitation, and then there's the stuff that we're going to do once people are quote unquote in the room, whether that's they're taking a survey or they're doing whatever. What needs to be in that invitation? And what form does that invitation need to take? And who needs to do the inviting? So I guess that's 3 questions. What needs to be in the invitation, in what form, and who invites? And answer any of them. One of the things that occurred to me is that the invitation can't come from just a person.
Yeah.
That it's got to be coming from different people, different faces. Yeah, Elaine.
So Hildy, I invite people to connect with Creating the Future all the time. So I'm happy to do that invitation to connect people, and I've connected a few people that about. I also I was doing a survey yesterday for another organization conducted by the Social Impact Advisory Group, and I suggested that they get in touch with Creating the Future. I have no problem talking about Creating the Future as a place that I go to get wisdom on how to do better. Whether it's a tool, whether it's a conversation that I can listen to, whether it's a video I can watch, I'm always saying, have you connected with this? Have you connect? And I'm happy to be an inviter. So that's one thing. And I know that I can demonstrate to others the value that I've received and the value that the organization has brought. Even in how you invite others to be part of conversations. Click this link, use this hashtag, join on video. Who else does that? I don't know any other organization who does that. So I think that's a strength that can be leveraged. Yeah.
Yeah, what you're bringing up for me is that whatever invitation comes from whomever, if it is personal in terms of what Creating the Future has meant for you, I don't know what it means to this is what it means to me, but I don't know what it means to you, and I want to know what it means to you. Yeah. Yeah, Ron.
I think for me, when I think of this, in terms of what form of the invitation, it seems to me it's going to be an actual discussion with someone, either like in this format, on the phone, in some way that you can interact and have an extended conversation. Because I think you want to really get a sense of the things that were mentioned already. What it is a form of a survey in a way. What has Creating the Future, how has it affected them? Have they used any of the tools? And what are what's their goal? What's their vision for the work that they're doing, and how do they see the interaction? And I think that really has to happen like this. You have to really just delve into it. In terms of, probably we all are going to be, I'm imagining we all have to do some of that inviting, and in terms of who would be my prospects, might be the people I've welcomed in from the Facebook group, in that role. I've sort of kicked up a conversation with a few people over time, and it would feel natural for me to check in with them and explore this a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. What that's sparking for me is that there's invitation and there's promotion, and that it takes both. It takes a big blanket, hey, we're doing this thing, anybody want to come? And it takes the one-on-one that you and Elaine are talking about. Yeah, Sherry.
Well, so far you've said 3 things I was going to say, so that's good. I would agree with you on the it's not the same for everyone, and it's also a process of learning how our message is received by utilizing those different methods. But what I was going to mention was in some very recent work that I've been working with a couple of our other consultants in TMAR, is that what we found is that the shorter intro of, hey, we'd really love to spend a little time chatting about this, and then not expecting that we're going to fully get them in that first option. So a brief introduction, here are some of the concepts, and as you've all mentioned, here are some places that you can become connected if you feel ready to do so, and if not, we'd love a follow-up. And so we're finding all of those work, and some of them don't. But it's been very interesting. I did want to mention, though, I do think it's important now more than ever that the invitation, there's thought put into who the invitation comes from and how it comes, because there are certain folks now, there's so much that you're doing in your email, and you're just sort of glancing past it and not really spending time on it, but it really does matter who it comes from.
Yeah.
I agree with that, Sherry, and I think there is power in folks from the integrity board. So Hildy, Vu, Angie, sending some of those things, because I send emails to people in my networks all the time asking them to do things, and that's fine. But chances are people that are already getting information from Creating the Future know who folks on the integrity board are. And if I got an email from, Carl, I'd be like, oh my God, like, minor celebrity, I need to respond to this. Like, he's reaching out to me. Like, that would really make me feel like welcome and excited to be a part of this group. And I've been in groups before where I've had kind of some of those personal connections. So I saw that it was approachable, but then the leader of the organization or someone higher up, personally responded or reached out to me. And that really made me feel valued, that someone took the time to reach out to little old me to be part of the group.
Yeah. And there's also, what you're making me think about, Madeline, is every once in a while, probably once, maybe twice a year tops, we send out a newsletter that the only thing in the subject line is a note from Hildy. And it's usually when the world's on fire and I'm just, bereft, and I know that the rest of the world is bereft, and we all just need to sort of huddle together. But with that subject line, we probably get more opening than whatever the topic is. And so, yeah, Josephine, go ahead.
I totally agree with both of you, Madeline and Hildy. And I just think, though, that what came to my mind that I wanted to share is, if it's meaningful to receive that email from that person, or, you know, to receive an email from a higher up to say, hey, Madeline, you know, please join us. But, you know, the intention behind it, I think it's really critical that it's an honest intention instead of, hi, president of whatever, can you send out these quick emails, you know, and that you just don't feel that connection any longer. So I think it's important just to add that then that person invites the person, but genuinely wants the person there, that even the person doing the inviting attends the conversation. You know, sometimes you get something and you think Paul's going to be there because Paul invited you, and Paul's nowhere to be found, and you never hear from Paul again. So
yeah, that's really, really, really important. Yes. A couple of thoughts, and Justin just noted that it needs to come from the integrity body, and I think that that's really important. I think it's really important. Yeah.
Looking at some of the comments, or thinking about some of the comments that were made, I'm thinking about authenticity. Yes, I think it needs to be the integrity board, but the integrity board can't do all of it. And I think it is an enthusiasm and an authenticity on the part of the inviter, on the part of the person. You know, I sometimes I'm accused of being overly enthusiastic about stuff, and I talk to somebody and I say, "Oh my God, have you seen this? It's fantastic. I've used it," or whatever, and it carries a completely different weight, as opposed to, I was asked to invite people, and I'm inviting folks, and it's great, and I kind of like the thing, whatever it is. So I think it's really important that there be that sort of, and that goes along the lines of the personal connection. If I personally feel you believe in this and that it makes you excited, I'm going to react differently than, you know, this is a task that I'm doing for an organization I like, or whatever.
Yeah, it gets to what Josephine was saying in terms of, you know, we get a letter from the president of the university who wants to raise money. I don't think he really cares about me. Yeah.
Yes, I got a letter from the Rogers CEO telling me how much he cares about me and how sorry he is that I lost my service for a whole day. I'm sure if I fell over him, he wouldn't even know me. But anyway, that's a different aside. So I know that you said the word promotion, and it is promotion. And I'm going to use the word marketing. And in, you know, people like a referral. They like that referral to something trusted. So an example is, you know, somebody will say, I need this. And you say, oh, I know a guy who does that. So people go, okay, this is a personal referral to a person who can help me. So it's having that opening, and always looking for that opening for somebody to be able to say, I know a guy, I know an organization, I know creating the future, let me connect you.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how that's helpful, but that's a thought that went through my brain.
It is absolutely. I'm also thinking about, so our mailing list right now is about 4,000 or 5,000 people. It's not huge, but it's certainly not something where each of us is going to send 1,000 notes to somebody and it'll be very personal. On the other hand, we do have tracking of who clicks on things. So those are people who are engaging in their own way. There's some people who click on every single thing in every single newsletter. Those are people who are engaged. We just haven't met yet. And so I'm thinking about, you know, there's something that goes absolutely, without a doubt, something will go out in the newsletter that'll say, hey, we're doing this thing if you want to be part of it. And you know, that could be 10 people that respond. if something goes out to the, let's say, 500 people who click on things, that's a different message coming from a different person, coming in a different way. So I think really looking at who are we talking to, even in the quote unquote promotion-y thing. You know, there's going to be the one-on-ones. There's going to be there's our supporters, donors and volunteers and people who come play at meetings like this. Those are people with whom we now have a one-on-one relationship. So I do think that it's going to be different for different people in how they've already proven they engage with creating the future. What kind of forms are you guys thinking about for the invitation? Yeah, Ron, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you just sparked an idea. I'm just wondering, one of the things I noticed in the Facebook group is that there are very few voices actually heard there. And I'm wondering, as we're going through this exercise of engaging, if there could be any way we could, on whatever platform, it might not be Facebook, it could be other ways, but just, I'm wondering how other voices could be heard so that when people engage and see different people there, it might just reduce the sort of personally involved in that.
You broke up a little bit, but what I think from what you're saying, we used to talk about it in class as the When Harry Met Sally moment. Those of you who remember the movie When Harry Met Sally, which the only thing anybody remembers is her faking an orgasm in the middle of a deli. And the woman next to her, who, by the way, is Rob Reiner's mother, turns to the waitress and says, "I'll have what she's having." And it's the "I'll have what she's having" moment of actually seeing it in conversation. The Facebook group is a really poor example of what's possible, because you're right, the conversation there is very limited for several reasons. One, it's really not facilitated or not facilitated aggressively. It's you know, I hate to say sort of ignored, but it's also Facebook. And people tend to be reluctant on Facebook to do a lot of that conversation. So the question of where to have the conversations is another big one. You know, if there's going to be conversations, there's obviously going to be some conversations like this. Do we want to have asynchronous conversations as well, where somebody can type something? You know, one of the things that's been interesting to me is that even though the technology is 40 years old, maybe longer, I see more engagement on listservs than I see just about anywhere. I don't see tons of engagement on Slack, unless it's like planning for a party and who's going to bring the beer. But I you know, what I really see mostly is really good conversations happening on listservs. You know, is that something that, but that's again not open, not public, not so. You know, what specifically are we going to do? What are the most important things for us to be doing?
So following that up, Hildy, a colleague recently sent out, they wanted people to complete a survey of school teachers, actually. And they had a really influential person send this thing out on Twitter who had tens of thousands of followers. And I think they got one person filling the survey out from using social media. Email is still the tool that does all the heavy lifting on sort of this stuff. So following on from the conversation that I've heard before, what sort of struck me is that there needs to be one message that's delivered by all of us. So what needs to be done is that there needs to be some work in terms of crafting that message. There needs to be some sort of call to action in it, as we've sort of discussed already, the sort of the what's in it for me and so on. But there may be numerous messengers.
Yeah, very, very important. Yeah, Sherry.
Yeah, again, I'm going to agree with Carl and say that we've seen more, and I've seen more on email responses back and forth where it feels comfortable. But I will have to say that just recently involved in a national conversation about, digital access, a big group of us from all over have joined Slack. And I have no idea how that's going to work out, because honestly, I'm just starting to kind of use it. I know I do have a daughter who that's all they use in their business, and back and forth. And so I do want to say, thinking about what's emerging is very important, and that, looking at that as a real important way of being able to capture some people that may not have normally been involved. So I'm not sure what the outcome of that is, but I'm going to try to use Slack in this particular conversation so that I can stay on top of having more input about digital access. But also, I did want to mention that we recently had some success with a very short video of short testimonials. It was 5 minutes. It was done, basically on our own, not by a professional, necessarily a marketer, but you may have that. But and we provided that in a very brief overview email, and we had learn more, complete this interest form, and it was just a very short Google attachment form for people to sign in with interest. And we did get some pretty positive feedback, and we were able to have a shorter interest session where we were able to do a more in-depth discussion about it. But also, what I want to mention about that avenue was that it gave us a reason to follow up too. It gave us a reason to check back in. Hey, did you get a chance to see this? Could you, if you're interested, here's a 3-question interest form to complete, and then it got them in our regular feedback. And so that did work, and we did have some good in-depth conversations with some possible people to participate. Some determined they weren't at the right stage of being involved, but it was still really good to talk with them, and to close out by saying, is this something you think, if we reach back out to you in another 4 or 5 months, you'd be interested in? And they said, yes, we'd like to be able to make room in our schedule to be able to fully participate. So I add that, something we just used that was successful.
I love that idea, video idea. Yeah, Justin.
So I'm going back, as I'm listening to different folks talk about things, and I'm going back to Ron, I kind of think about, the most effective communication means it's the one I'm interested in using in that moment about that thing. Sometimes I want to chat. Sometimes I want to talk on the phone. Sometimes I want to do the online chat. Sometimes I want to email. Sometimes I want to watch a video. So I think whatever we come up with, everything that we've written about engagement means it's on their terms. So I think we just need to put it out there. If we're going to have a survey and a video and the opportunity to talk to someone one-on-one or join a conversation, literally make that available to everyone at the point of contact. Not you have to go somewhere, but it literally is. How are you feeling right in this moment? Or would you like us to contact you later? Gosh, I would love some of those. Like, can I click this, remind me later, because I don't want to deal with it right now. So I think just as we're, obviously there are capacity components behind that, but I think being as transparent and saying, look, we know nothing about you and where you are at the moment of receiving this invitation. And here are the different ways in which you can participate, engage, and, pick one, pick three that's there. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, and some of the what and I love the fact that once we get into the how, we get into the weeds. And that's okay, because that's where we're living right now, is in the weeds. The thought, Justin, of instead of having a which one occurs to you, the thought of doing several different emails. So at that moment, if that one strikes you, great, and if it doesn't, you just click past it. The thought of, do you want to watch this video? Here's a video, and it's 2 sentences. It says, watch this video. And it's got 6 different people on it saying, here's why I would get engaged, blah, 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 blah. A different one saying, take this survey or be part. I'm just thinking about that's frequently, because if I see a whole list, I glaze over and don't do any of them, because it's going to make me think, oh, okay, now which of those do I want to do? I don't know. I'll mark it in red and never come back to it. And red in mine means urgent. Take a look at this, which is great for not coming back to. So what we're talking about is different ways of inviting. That there's blanket promotion via the newsletter, inviting them to a thing. So I think what we're really talking about is I'm trying to think in a plan terms. We probably want to do an announcement to say this is coming, and if you're interested, click here. And the 2 people will click there. We probably want to do an invitation specific to whichever events we're going to do. So if somebody's going to have a facilitated conversation on Tuesday, come join that conversation. If we're going to do a survey, okay, here's where you can click to the survey. But specific to whatever, and I'm calling it an event just for a placeholder. And that's again via email, because that's how we're connected to people primarily. I love the idea, Sherry, of doing a quick video, 2 minutes with a minute of 30 seconds of Sherry saying and Jackie saying and Dimitri saying, here's why I get engaged with creating, that kind of thing. And from there, those are the kinds of things that we can send out from creating the future. From there, though, what does it look like for each of us, or whomever of you want to be part of that? I understand. I don't want to make any assumptions that just because you're sitting in the room today, you want to be part of it. Although if you're on the integrity board, you have no choice, or you've got me to deal with. But what do we see as the role of each of us as individuals once those blanket announcements have been made? Because again, what we're really talking about is not introducing people to creating the future, is really connecting with people who are already part in some way, even if they're just sort of scanning the newsletter at some point.
So I guess I'm kind of struggling with this question a bit of how do we invite people when we're not sure what we're inviting them to do? It feels a little bit like we're packing to go to the airport and we don't know where we're going. For example, when I'm inviting people to things, that looks very different based on what I'm inviting people to. If I'm getting married, I'm going to send an RSVP out and then invitations when they get closer, those sorts of things. If I'm just having people over, for a tailgate this weekend, I'm going to put it in a group me. And I make those decisions based on what that actual thing is. And so I'm having a really hard time thinking about what does that invitation look like, who needs to be involved, et cetera, when I don't really know what that ask for people is.
Good. So let's go there. let's go there. What are we asking people to participate in? And again, you know, what will create all of the conditions that are in these sheets? We've talked about potentially a survey. We've talked about facilitated conversation like this.
And Hildy, are we still in this conversation assuming that it's folks who already have somewhat of a connection to creating the future?
I think they're really the only people, and you all can chime in if you think differently, but I think in terms of asking people what's next for this organization,
yes,
it needs to be people who have some relationship with the organization, even if they just occasionally open a newsletter. Yeah, Elaine.
Well, Hildy, you mentioned it. Well, several people have mentioned it too, that like what's in it for you? So to all of people who have been connected to creating the future through whatever channels are open, what's in it for them in terms of what has been the reason that you came to us in the first place? I'm using the word us now, joining myself to the group here, but you know, what has been your reason for coming to creating the future? What has it, what has been in it for you? And what do you want more of? The other thing I'm confused about is who in this picture here is in the Integrity Commission and who isn't, because I don't know that. Is that important?
And that always just makes me smile. It always makes me smile that during these meetings, one can never, you know, we don't separate out the board from everybody else. What were you saying, Dimitri?
Just have the integrity raise their hand, integrity members.
Sure.
You could see it in visual form.
Yep. If y'all want to raise your hands, if you are on the integrity team.
I'm integral.
There's a secret handshake.
So Mark is on the Starship Enterprise, but the rest of us are on. So the board is, as far as the IRS is concerned, has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people. Dimitri and me, Justin, Angie, Vu, Farah, who is not here today, Eli, who is not here today, and Carl. I think I got everybody. Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's really interesting, Elaine, as you're asking, what has been your reason for connecting and what do you want more of? That could be the whole survey. You know, there's something powerful. I am more likely to click if I know that the survey is 2 questions. We have a 2-question survey.
I was just going to say, just a thought on top of that. I don't know, I'm sort of torn between, but is it beneficial to say, and you know, somewhere, I do enjoy the emails to say, if you don't want to be receiving these, or don't, you know, if you only want to stay on this sort of email list or something, to give an option so that it, you know, I choose every time, so that it's not, you know, why am I getting so many emails? Or I don't know where, if that really fits for this, but I do enjoy having that option. And sometimes it does make me realize, you know, yeah, I really, you know, I joined this and I want to be a part of it, kind of thing, instead of, I don't remember asking for this.
Right.
I also always wonder with those kinds of surveys is what happens if someone says, well, I want everything to just be the same. And if everybody says that, that actually might not be the answer that we want or that we're looking for. So I think being a little bit more explicit about that continuity question just and communicating is and us being clear on the message is this, that there are some things that we're hoping to change. Is it that we want to think about doing business differently, or just being a little bit more explicit? Because I think if we're too open-ended and say, well, what would you like, and everyone says what I've been getting, it's great, in the end that's actually not helpful to what we want. So I think really I feel like whatever the process is for the benefit of creating the future is there has to be some of that questioning around what will it take. So really being able to say, what is it that you want this to make possible for you? And what's your notion of what that takes? So that we can then, because that's what the continuity needs to be, is the what it takes, not the what do you want.
Right. Yeah, the thought that's occurring to me is sort of a multiple choice. What options would you participate in? Which is very, very different than what do you want? What do you want is, these all sound great. What would you participate in is a different question.
I'm also thinking that surveys need,
I need to know why. I need to know why I'm responding. A little bit of background, so there and this goes to the, what's the purpose of this question, so that it isn't just Mr. Rogers saying, and I'm talking about your Mr. Rogers, Elaine, not.
Oh, Rogers Cable.
That's who she's talking about. Why are they in contact with you? Why are we in contact? What do we want from them beyond just the opinion A or B? Well, we want A or B because we hope to accomplish X, and you're helping us to accomplish X.
Yeah. So really what we're talking about is defining the mechanisms for connecting. There's survey, there's facilitated conversations in real time, there's facilitated conversations that are asynchronous, so whether it's a listserv or Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever. What other mechanisms have you found to be effective in having people connect? Boo, when you all were at RVC, what did you find to be the most effective in terms of getting people connected?
Hi, Hildy. Yeah, I think in the beginning, again, we were creating lots of opportunities for people to just kind of propose what it is that they want to do with some instructions, right? So like we knew that we need like an evaluation committee, we needed like a communications and a fundraising team, and just kind of encouraging people to join various different work streams. Yeah, and I think right now with the community-centric fundraising movement, we're trying something similar, which is allowing people different spaces to plug in based on their interests and their skills. So some folks are like, I have no interest at all in governance. I don't want to do anything related to governance. I do want to do advocacy work, so that's what I'm going to do. And other people want to focus on writing and thought leadership. So creating different space effective.
Yep.
Can I, oh, sorry.
Yeah, Mark and then Elaine.
Sorry, Elaine. I want to take off on what Boo just said, because we've found that with people, some people want to do 2 hours a month. Some people want to do 2 hours a year. Some people are very triggered by, oh, that's an important issue for me. what do you need me to do? So you've got to have a task list set up, but there's a difference between goals and outcomes from where I've been sitting over the last couple of years. The goals are very metric oriented. They're very well defined. The program's already in place. I need 5 people to pick up green buckets, for example. Whereas outcomes, I think, are more directional. So if you're asking people, where do you want us to go? Or are we going in the right direction? Or it's more amorphous, but it also takes a lot more thought. And a lot of people just don't want to think. They want to help us because we asked, but there's another group out there that want to actually steer, if you will, or wonder about the direction as far as a philosophy is concerned. And we need to provide both of those things.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Elaine.
Maybe I misunderstood a question, but what has been effective for me, and this is crazy, but picking up the phone and calling people. You know, I need 10 minutes of your time, 15 minutes of your time. People have been very receptive to, I'd love to talk on the phone. Now, that's just been a success that I've had lately, so it's not going to be for everybody all the time.
Yeah, there are people, and that's really, really, really important, is the difference between facilitated group conversations and one-on-one conversations. Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, it's the whole marketing thing. The one-on-one is always the best. It has been for, I don't know, 80 years or 200 years. I don't know, but we keep coming back to the same thing, that personal relationship, that one-on-one, whether it's an introduction to somebody or somebody we already know, introducing us to somebody we would like to know. And then the next group is 10 to 12. It's a different format. It's a different approach. And then the 1-on-30 is, a lot of times it's educational, but then you wind up with the 1-on-1 after, you know, when the wine starts to flow. But and then you get into 1 out of 10,000, and that's a direct mail from my town. And we didn't get anything. We got 350 responses off that. You know, that was a big, giant, God blessed waste of time. You know, like, if you really want to know what's going on, make some contacts. The personal relations, interpersonal relationships are so important.
Yeah.
To that end, I'm also thinking about that if it's about relationships, opportunities for those relationships to happen. So I know if there was something like a regional Creating the Future meetup to have this conversation, I would be so excited to meet the people in my area doing this work and be able to make those relationships and those connections.
Yeah.
It's me, Jackie. It's you and me. We'll have a meetup.
Madeline, does this start to answer the question that you had in terms of what, or guide us to a different direction if that would be more helpful?
So are we looking for ways for people to get involved, or are we looking for ways to involve folks in the conversation around how to get involved? Does that make sense?
Yeah. What I think we're looking for, and y'all jump in, is ways to involve people in the conversation specifically about building what's next for Creating the Future. So they would be sitting in a room right now. So it's if this were the conversation, it would be using catalytic thinking to say, okay, what would good look like for you? What outcomes would you want to get out of it? What would need to be in place for that? And so it really is about what's next for this thing that is hopefully important to them in some way, even if it's just because they read the newsletter once in a while. Yeah.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and the other thing that's occurring to me as we're talking it through is that just as it is with everything, in addition to being involved in the conversation and having the power to actually create what's next for creating the future, it would be experiencing catalytic thinking in real time. And that's occurring to me. Because for those of you who are in the learning cohort, the practice cohort, that was what was attractive to you all to do this, is that it wasn't just be part of the conversation, but be part of the conversation that you will experience and practice catalytic thinking at the same time. And so for some of those conversations, that will be true. For the survey, you know, maybe it'll be, and experience how to write a survey using catalytic thinking. But it's occurring to me that it might be, and it might be too much.
I think there's a lot of like cool ways that could be done even asynchronously too, where like maybe each month the newsletter has this one question in the process that you can answer. People fill out that answer to, you know, just who's going to be impacted, what does good look like, and then we share those responses in the next one, and then we answer the next question. I'm trying to think of what are those ways to make this more feasible, because getting, you know, all 4,000 people on the listserv in a Zoom room, maybe not, you know, the most manageable idea, right?
Facilitating that.
So those little surveys, maybe it's small regional groups that meet up and we can facilitate. So Carl doesn't have to be here at 10 p.m. and I don't have to be here at 4 a.m., you know, to make those sorts of things work. But there's a lot of, I think, multiple ways to get people involved that meet them where they're at and that they're willing to engage in at this stage in the game.
That's really, really a good idea. Yeah, Ron, and then Elaine, and then Sherry.
Yeah, I'm in terms of what's in it for me, I kind of get why people sort of dabble with creating the future, if you like. You know, they're trying to apply these tools to achieve an outcome in their own organizations, in their own lives. What's less clear to me, and so some people are probably willing, you know, to go to different lengths to get facility with that tool and experience and learn the craft. But I'm curious about what you need as creating the future infrastructure. What is it that creating the future, what's the win? If we look down the line 6 months or a year, or what would be the outcome that would be a huge success for the actual structure of creating the future, the organization itself?
Determining what that structure is going to be. Yeah, just literally determining what is next for our mission. And what will that be, and what will that take, and how's it going to happen? We are right now seriously a blank slate, which is great. Scary. It's a lot easier to say, here's our program, and we're just going to keep doing it. You know, we have just as a refresher for everyone, and so thank you, Ron, for asking. In the first 5 years of our 10-year mission, we focused on, there's two parts of our mission. One is to experiment with catalytic thinking, and the second is to share what we learn in those experiments. We have done a ton of experimenting, and we have not done a ton of sharing what we've learned, documenting and sharing what we've learned. We have not done everything from academic articles that, you know, Angie and I are like 6 months at this point on one stupid article that the two of us are trying to pull together. If we had, you know, let's say a team of writers, that would be so it's because we don't have the team of writers, we have not documented and shared. And so a big part of that is, what does that look like? Who's documenting? How are we doing? What do you need in terms of documentation? How will that be shared with people? How are we sharing what we've learned? How are people learning from what we've learned? How is that interact, et cetera? We don't know. We don't know. And so it's determining what's next, especially for that big piece of sharing what we've learned. Elaine, and then Sherry.
If I'm talking too much, just tell me. Just building on what Madeline said, I think where there is value, and now this is maybe just a personal statement, is when it's a generative conversation. So I am not a person who just likes to answer a survey and then that's the end of it. So even yesterday, when this organization surveyed me about another organization, I said, and what's happening with this information and how's that coming back to me and what's the next step? Because I don't want to just give it and it goes off into a black hole somewhere. So, you know, using different tools to have an iterative and generative conversation, and people will drop in and out as they can and as they feel they want to add value. I think that would be great, so that you get to see what people share, and then, you know, that always prompts other thoughts for you, and that will build and build and build, just not unlike what's happened in our whole practice to date. The other thing is just to come back to the question about, is this about creating the future as an organization, or is this about the impact creating the future wants to see in the world? Now, the impact that creating the future wants to see in the world is whatever, and then it's what needs to happen to make that possible, which gets back to how do we make that happen? So that was just from, you know, from what Ron was mentioning.
Exactly.
Thank
Exactly.
you.
Yeah, and that's the conversations that that I'm looking forward to being part of. You know, what does creating the future make possible for you? What would you like creating the future to make possible for you? What will it take for that to happen? I'm also really I tried to scribble down every word you said, Elaine, because we've talked so much about the difference between being extractive and being mutual. And what you talked about with the survey is how often are we filling out a survey? We have no idea if they're using it, if they're not using it, if they're just trying to do a survey so that we feel like we're involved, and they're going to do what the hell they want anyway. And so I think there's a big part in there about sharing. How will we use the information? How will we report back? What will it take to build on that generatively? I think that's a really, really big piece of what needs to be included in all of it. So thank you for that. And don't stop talking. Sherry.
Yeah, one of the other things that I think it at least attracted me and has kept me really engaged in the conversations here is the depth of geographical difference. While Madeline just have talked about, it's 4 o'clock in the morning one place and it's midnight another. I thank you to those people that have had to really maneuver that. But I think that's another thing that really piqued my interest for being a part of this, because it really brings meaning to creating the future, globally, not just in the small location that I might be in. And so I'm not sure that we've, shared that additional asset of having integrity team members or individuals that are a part of it from, all over the world. And I think that's something that there are people that would like to be a part of, because they want to know what's happening everywhere and how it impacts them and how it can help them find their way to creating the future.
Yep. Yeah, and in addition to how we do the engagement of the conversation about what's next, that may be a part of what's next. Doing more stuff regionally, doing more stuff locally. I have no idea. So it sounds like the stuff is the meat of what the engagement will be. Is everything. I love the idea, Madeline, of not just a survey, but one question each time. One question, you know, every couple of weeks when we do the newsletter, there's one question in it. There obviously could be a real survey, a Survey Monkey-ish kind of survey. Facilitated conversations in real time, facilitated conversations asynchronously, one-on-one conversations. I'm not entirely sure how that fits with, and it could just be, if you want to have a one-on-one conversation, let us know. An invitation to have a conversation. Those kinds of geographic conversations that we're talking about, those seem like, are there any other options that I missed? And I really do love the idea of people plugging in based on what they're interested in and what they want to participate with. So as Vu was saying, you know, if they were interested in governance, they would go to it, and some would say, I'm absolutely not.
I think it's important, Hildy, if you include that monthly question or, you know, something for them to respond, is to share, you know, to make sure you share back again.
Yep.
Then you begin to feel more connected and want to hear more.
Yes. Yeah.
And it might be helpful to have that question come from different people, just to show different faces and to have different perspectives expressed, you know, as we go.
Yeah. And there's obviously going to be background or whatever. There's going to be considerable thought. We'll be using catalytic thinking to design each of these things. So whether it is a survey, whether it is a question, whether it is a facilitated conversation, all of that would be using catalytic thinking. And so what I'm seeing in the next in September, because I'm trying to get a calendar together here. What I'm seeing in September is that all of these pieces parts are figured out, determined, written, ready. Whether that is a blog post explaining what we're doing, the video with the various, here's why I'm involved with creating the future, whatever the question is, that easily a month to 2 months of pulling all that stuff together, and then a month to 2 months of actually doing the engaging. That it's not spread out over 6 months and a year. I'll lose my mind. That's first of all, and so that's but that it's a short-term campaign. And during that time, we will design all these pieces parts. We'll also, I think it's probably going to be important to prioritize which are the most important to do, because there's a ton of ideas here and only so many hours in the day for each of us. And if there's, you know, one of these that somebody wants to run with and one of these that somebody else wants to run with, that could probably be. So that's what's occurring to me. What is occurring to you all in terms of next steps?
So I think one thing is what I think several folks have mentioned is clarifying the invitation. What are we asking people to directly provide insight into, and why are we asking? I think that specific language, being able to, and maybe able to pull that out of the notes that Jackie has taken from the session, but being able to do that. And then, I think that invitation, as was mentioned before, can be framed as an invitation from the integrity body. Exactly how it goes out and gets distributed, I think that's secondary to my thinking, but those are the two pieces that I think are, top of the list.
Yeah. What's occurring to me is that each of these pieces that we're talking about needs to be fleshed out. That if we're talking about a survey, then a group needs to write the survey. If we're talking about, and from there, a question from that survey can go into each newsletter. So that's, if what we're talking about is inviting people to facilitate a conversation, being clear about who's going to facilitate those conversations. Reminding folks that about 6-8 months ago, in a discussion which was the precursor to these discussions, the succession planning conversation, the mandate that was placed at my feet was write the damn book. So my ability to facilitate 9 million conversations and write the book. So making sure that we've got people who want to facilitate these conversations, which will give us all practice in facilitating these conversations. So I think each of the pieces, including, Justin, the invitation, what are the various forms of invitation going to say? So if all of those pieces, both the actual engagement pieces, which is the facilitate, the survey, the etc., and the invitations, are done and ready to go by, let's say, October 15th, which gives us 6 weeks until Thanksgiving in the US and the start of the holiday season everywhere else. Looks like there's going to be a bunch of conversations between now and then. Does someone want to facilitate those conversations? Or someone's? And what I'm thinking is that in each of these things, so starting with a survey, let's just, picking one thing, saying, okay, next week we're going to get together and we're going to use catalytic thinking to design the survey. From the survey, we will have X, Y, and Z. Then picking another thing. Let's talk about the facilitated conversation. Let's design and to see who wants to do that. I'm just thinking that we take one task at a time, get it done, and start moving forward. Talk to me. What does that feel like? What's occurring to you? Is this the point where everybody seems to have a phone call from their mother they have to take?
You'll see Sherry.
Yep. Justin has to go. He's got some stuff going on. He is offering to facilitate and work with folks on framing for context. Thank you. Yeah, and Elaine, you're breaking up in some of your stuff as well as you're talking. So we're recording. Sherry, yeah.
Yeah, I think since the four of us are on the same team with the Patterson Foundation, I think Josephine, Rachel, Alicia, and I could start the survey conversation and conduct that.
That'd be awesome. I think that's a really big part of the what's next. Is from that so much is going to come. Thank you, Sherry. And thank you for volunteering, Rachel and Alicia.
They're great. They love it.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. And if we could schedule maybe something for next week to get that rolling, that would be awesome. All right, how many of you would be interested? And we bleh, get your words together, Hilton. Facilitating around here is always done in pairs. So you're never on your own. Who might be interested in helping to facilitate some of the one-on-one, not the one-on-one conversations, but if there are group conversations, who might be willing to practice and facilitate some of those conversations? And we would do all the prep beforehand all together as a group. But who might be willing to facilitate some of those conversations? Justin has already said that he would.
Jackie just sent a message that I was going to send her, so we can volunteer as a pair.
I would so want to be in the room for that one. Anyone else that wants to help facilitate? Elaine has said, great. And if you need time to think about it, get hold of me later. Yeah.
I'd be happy to co-facilitate with someone
That'd be
with
great.
experience. So
That'd be
keep me
great.
on track.
That'll be awesome. That'll be awesome. Yeah, these are the main roles. I mean, as I'm seeing it, the main roles are write the survey. Our job here will be to get the survey out, at least to the initial stuff to our newsletter folks. And then from there, the next step is going to be writing that invitation. And, the invitation for people to be part of it. So there's the stuff, but then there's the how do we get folks to the stuff and the stuff to the folks. All right, so for the facilitators, there's planning, the facilitation. And so we can schedule that with Jackie, Madeline, Justin, Elaine, and Ron. And then writing the invitation is also, and writing the background that explains the why. You don't want an invitation that's this long. You want an invitation that's this long, and a link to, and here's why we're doing this. And then that has, but short and sweet being way better.
Wondering if the video things we talked about falling.
Ooh, the video. Forgot about the video. Write the invitation.
Hildy, just wondering if sort of the order, but the writing the invitation is connected to the survey, right? Like we would want just to at least maybe see the description or sort of what the invitation is leaning to help us.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Yeah, I think we need to have this stuff, just as Madeline said before. So I'm not entirely sure what I'm inviting people to. I think we need to have the facilitation sort of planned out, the survey done so that we know what we're asking people to do. Yeah. So 1, 2, and then 3 is the invitation. Dimitri, can I put you on the spot and ask if you would produce the video? Okay.
Yes, I would be happy to.
Okay. Okay. Unless we can get Bill Nagy to do it.
I would be happy for him to do it.
You Patterson folks.
Could we do that?
Can you guys check and see if Bill would be willing to do that?
I think we can. I would definitely ask. I mean, we'll definitely ask. That's definitely always an option.
That would be really, really wonderful. And if he can't, then Dimitri can be the fallback. That would be wonderful. He just does such great stuff, Bill. Yeah. And then it is a matter of we're going to need to get together and talk about what's going to be in the video, plan the video, who we want, what we want people to, what questions we want them to answer. It's got to be short. Nobody's going to watch a 5-minute video. It's got to be, 2 minutes. All right, and that can happen at the same time as the planning conversations around the facilitation and the survey design. And the invitation really is the last piece. So what I've got is survey design is number 1. Planning the facilitation, preparing for the facilitation that will happen when folks say, yes, I'd like to be part of a conversation like this. 3 is getting together to plan the video. And if you all can ask Bill, that would be awesome. And then 4 is writing the invitation. I should say invitations, because I think they're going to be different formats. Does that sound about right? We could do these meetings once a week during September. I'll pull together a when is good for scheduling that. Because I would, if it were earlier than October 15th, I'd be doing a very, very big happy dance.
Hildy, I'd like to be in on the surveys for whatever I can offer. I'm not sure yet, but
awesome.
I'd like
I
to
just
be on
want
the
to say I'm
survey
looking
team.
forward to seeing your happy dance, and maybe that will be videotaped as well.
TikTok.
No problem. Then I'd have to get on TikTok. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. That'll be awesome. That'll be awesome. All right, how do you all feel about this as a plan? And things are going to evolve as we obviously go along. Carl and Angie, wherever you want to jump in on any of this, let us know.
Well, sorry, I'm just flagging a bit.
Oh, honey,
Is it 9:30, Carl?
It's that would be past my bedtime. Way past my bedtime. Oh, thank you. I'm just glad you're here. I'm just glad you're here.
Yeah, I'll be in England actually the next month. So I'm going to be traveling doing research, so I won't have, unfortunately, a lot of flexibility for time in the next month. But I also think our article, Hildy, that we've started work on would be another avenue by which to engage people. So can keep getting that done too would be good.
Yeah, I know. That's on my plate. You were the
Well,
last
I
one.
have some parts to do still, so I'll just keep working on my bits.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, between Carl and Boo, between Carl being exhausted and Boo being sick, I'm like, it's okay, guys. You know, we'll figure that out as we go. But how does this fail as a plan? I see nodding. I feel. Does anybody feel like there's something big we're missing? Like this is not going to work. This is ineffective. I've been keeping my mouth shut, but this is stupid. I mean,
Madeline, how do you feel about your question you asked a while back? Has that been resolved?
the which, I'm sorry.
Madeline asked, you know, what is it we're asking for? More concrete. I just wondered if that's become clear to her in this conversation.
Well, one, thank you for checking in, Ron. I appreciate that. And yes, I think I'm feeling better now with some more action steps here. So I will send an email distress call if I wake up in the middle of the night very confused.
Good, thank you. And thank you, Ron, for checking in. Dimitri and then Mark.
One of the things that I'm thinking of is a feedback loop for everyone who is not on a particular team, so that everyone can be aware of what's going on and they can participate with their ideas or energy or whatever. They may suddenly decide, wow, this is, you know, I really want to help over here now that I see this coming together, because some of this, even in my mind, is still kind of amorphous as we're moving forward. I mean, we definitely have a plan, we definitely have a path, but, you know, I'm just sort of, as I think about it, I would like to know what each group is doing as they come up with stuff. So the ability to have that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Mark.
Yeah, I'm the mission guy. I need to know what our mission is. And that's okay. I mean, I know we do, and I know you do, but when Madeline asked the question, is like, oh yeah, what are we selling? And she's right. I mean, what are we? I don't want to say producing. What are we offering? What are we involving people in? And again, we're back to the question: what do I want people to do? Well, it's not always a thing to do. Although something just hit me in the head while we were sitting there today. The tools that we have is the paradigm, which makes it's such an odd thing, because we can teach the tools, but the tools are the paradigm that we want people to use for their own work. It's not in and of itself. So there's a conundrum there, I guess.
We tend to be very, very fractal, very, everything is everything else. Yeah. 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 Yep. All right, I'm looking at the chat to make sure we haven't missed anything. I will put together a scheduling thing for 1 a week in September. We will start with anybody that wants to be involved in the survey design, being led by the folks from the Patterson Foundation. So thank you all. The second one will be planning for what will go into the facilitated conversations if we have conversations like this. The third one will be getting together to plan the invitation video. Just to who will be, you know, what do we need that video to accomplish? And again, we'll use catalytic thinking for each of these. The fourth one will be writing the invitations, the background information, etc. And yeah, Dimitri, I think having even if it is another listserv or a way of everybody getting together and just sharing what is the status. Here's what the survey group did last week. Here's what's building off of everybody. I think that will work well. And it is going to evolve. I mean, we have a sketch of a plan, and each of these, as they get solidified, will affect the next one. With the end goal being that our community determines what is next for creating the future. If it is about sharing what we learned, in what ways make sense, which are the most important. If we've got 7 different ways that we can share what we've learned, what are the ones that we need to absolutely do first, then second, then third? And it's all a grand experiment, so I have no idea how it's going to end up. Let's first of all thank you all. Thank you all. This is huge. And let's take a moment for reflection. So if we'll first take a deep breath. Please remember to breathe out. For those of us who hold our breaths, please remember to breathe out. And if you took any notes today, if any ahas occurred to you, what is standing out to you from our time together today? I'll start with one, and that is that we started out by asking the very big esoteric question of what engagement makes possible. And we started that out at the beginning of June. And we talked in very broad strokes about what engagement makes possible, not just for creating the future, but especially for the people we will be engaging. And I love how concrete it turns into. I love the fact that it always starts out so big, and so we'll all hold hands and sing Kumbaya, and it comes right down to, we're gonna have a meeting next week and we're gonna develop a survey. And here's what it's gonna say. And that, I've been doing this now for, in its early development stages, 20 years. And every time it's like, this is awesome. We need to start big. We need to start with what we really want, and then we create that path. And that just always tickles me. So that's mine. What's standing out to you all?
I guess I'll go here. I would say I very much enjoyed the input around the table, so to speak, today. It's really interesting kind of getting to know people as they interact throughout the meeting. And I feel a little trepidation and mixed with anticipation of getting into action mode and getting seeing where the thought processes lead on the ground. And so lots of different emotions. It was good. Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful. Josephine.
I definitely agree with what Ron said. Wonderful, and wanting to see, how it moves forward and all of that. I think what really stands out for me is the nugget of the difference between invitation and promotion. And I think if we just keep going back to the reason we're sending whatever we're sending out, to make sure there's that distinction, could make a huge difference in the outcome of a lot of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Who else? What's standing out to you all as we're leaving today?
I'm going to jump in just to say I've been doing a lot of reading around design Arturo Escobar, who's a Colombian design theorist and anthropologist, and some other folks who are in like design theory, and a lot of work being done around climate crisis. And Carl, you'll hear some of this in my talk next week or 2 weeks or so. Just how we need to, there's a lot of work being done around how we have to rethink design, right? Because the design of the way we do things has created this, crisis that we're now facing. And so, if we need a post-development, or there's different, transition design is someone that's being used. And so, but implementation of that, not so easy, right? Because it's like changing your minds, changing how we do things, changing how we think, and changing how we do. And it just strikes me that like the work that we're doing here is one avenue, right, to explore these like ways to do things in a different way that would hopefully be working towards sustainment, as Tony Fry talks about. And I think that, we are facing this crisis, so we have to be doing this work.
Thanks. Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. One of the things standing out to me is you, Hildy, in terms of this is a hard type of session to facilitate because it is amorphous and we don't know, and it requires outcome immediately in the session. So it's not just hypothetical, it is reality. And so I just, just watching this, just kudos in terms of being able to facilitate this in a way that creates a positive feeling of moving forward from everybody. Everybody's participating and whatnot. So I just noting that how important and how powerful that is. And then a side caveat, Vu, thank you for being here, even though you're doing it from your hammock, which I just, I don't know if I admire that or say, Vu, you should be in bed. And I guess you sort of are. And thank you, Carl, for, I know it's late in the day for you and you've had a full day. And so I'm thanking all the members in this session today, and I'm feeling very positive toward that. And I just wanted to highlight those. And Jackie, I'll highlight you later once we get your notes, which are always fabulous, always.
Yes, they are. Thank you. Mark.
Yeah, I want to say the proof is in the pudding. I think I didn't get a personal invitation to come here a year and a half ago. I don't know how many of us did. I think it might have been word of mouth. And, I know 4 of you ringers in here belong together, but that's okay because we're friends of friends and the relationships developed. But the invitation had to be one of them in the first place. And I don't think they, you called up Carl, says, you read a lot of books. We need you on the team. I don't think that's what happened. So I think with a standing invitation, people, when they self-select, are going to be much more engaged than when you chase them down the block and tell them you need them on the board.
Thank you. Carl, how about you?
I think actually my sort of reflection on this evening is that, and I've said this, I'm sure before, but though maybe all of you haven't been there when I've said it, is that this stuff is hard. If it was easy, we would have found solutions to all of this stuff many months and meetings ago. And I guess I would sort of just add to sort of the positive things that people have said is that if we come to these meetings sometimes and it can feel a bit like pulling teeth, if we can't quite get the answer that we need at the time that we need, keep going.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much for being here. I know it's late. I would be way past my bedtime. Indeed. Yeah. Jackie, how about you?
The thing that's standing out to me is I think Justin's comment from earlier that the most effective means of communication is whatever one speaks to the person in that particular moment. And I think that's really standing out to me because that really speaks to what an unbelievable win it is for every single person we do engage successfully. And I know it's often a numbers game of we want a lot and we want all the people to respond, and that's a great goal. And also, like, every single one is huge and significant and kind of an amazing confluence of events. So that's the piece that's kind of standing out to me.
It's great. It's great. Thank you. Thank you. Madeline, how about you?
Well, the reflection, Jackie, because it's absurd the number of different communication methods I have for people on my phone right now. But it worked, so there we are. My reflection, I think, is one of a little bit of the trepidation I feel, just when I'm starting a new thing and like, what did I just sign up for? But also excitement to be able to try something new and grow and learn. So thank you all for creating the environment and coming up with the space in which to do that.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Rachel, you've been quiet today. I know you're absorbing.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of full circle right now for me because when we started this, it was 2 days before I started here at the Patterson Foundation, and now we're here, and it's just kind of crazy. And I had joined halfway through the day doing another meeting, so my apologies. But I'm excited to dive into this survey with my team and anyone else who wants to join and just continue to see how this all develops.
Wonderful. Thank you. Boo, how about you?
Hi, everyone. Apologies. I'm kind of loopy from all the cold and flu medication for this COVID. I'm glad to see more actions. You know how I feel about intellectualizing and how much we do that in our sector. So it's great that we're taking a more active role in getting stuff done with the surveys and the interviews and the videos. And they may not work, and I think that's still great. So, you know, let's try stuff, fail, make mistakes, learn from it, and move forward.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Sherry, how about you?
I feel a sense of coming together and more understanding. I think what you provided in writing for us to study before we got here was really helpful. I think there's always some great input, and it always intrigues me. I don't feel ever like I'm at the end of the thought process, and I like being that way. But again, I really, I personally like all the input from the different realm and possibilities of where people are. And so, and right now I'm typing an email to our leader asking if Bill Wegge can do a 2-minute video. So let's see what happens. Thank you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And I got his name wrong. Bang. I had it with an N and not a W. The last thing that I want to share is I will be reaching out to some of the people who are not in this room, but have been very, very supportive of Creating the Future's work to see if they want to join any of these teams. And so we may have some new folks joining us as we go along. But these are folks who've been so supportive of the work that we've been doing all along. So, and I'm just very eager to see what's next. And very much like Vu said, we're going to try a whole bunch of stuff and we'll see what works best. And we'll learn from it. And I don't believe in failure. I believe that if we are learning, then we're not failing. That if the goal is to learn, then you don't fail, you learn. And we're going to do a ton of learning. So I am grateful to all of you for all of the work that you've done all this past summer and for what's next. And looking forward to that. And I will be sending out a note in the next couple of days. So thank you guys. Have a wonderful, those of you who celebrate Labor Day, have a wonderful, wonderful Labor Day. And those of you who don't, stay well and safe, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.